I'm Amanda Collins, 31, and I built a small, word of mouth catering business from scratch after years of hosting every family holiday without ever asking for anything in return. For most of my adult life, I showed up, cooking, organizing, helping, because I believed that's what love looked like. I gave my time, my energy, my care to people who never really saw me. But when my partner's family locked me out of Thanksgiving dinner after I cooked the entire meal, I realized something had to change. That moment, standing on the porch, still in my apron, was the start of everything. Have you ever poured yourself into others, only to be dismissed the moment you needed them? If you have, share your story in the comments. You're not alone. Before we get into how it all unfolded, drop where you're watching from in the chat. And if you've ever had to choose yourself after someone else made you feel invisible, hit like and subscribe for more true stories about boundaries, healing, and quiet power. What happened after that door closed changed everything. My name is Amanda Collins. I'm 31 years old, and until recently, I would have told you my in-laws were my second family. Ethan and I met during our sophomore year of college at a campus volunteering event. He was folding chairs at the end of the night while I was trying to carry 3 leftover pizza boxes by myself. He offered to help, made a joke about my superhuman balance, and by the time we got everything cleaned up, we'd exchanged numbers. We started dating that spring. Ethan was steady, thoughtful, and kind in the quiet ways I'd never known to look for. He'd bring me snacks during midterms, walk me home from late classes, sit through my favorite documentaries even when he was bored. He never made big romantic gestures, but he always showed up. That mattered more. By graduation, we were living together. He got a job in logistics at a regional supply chain firm, and I was working entry-level admin at a nonprofit. Money was tight, but we were happy. His family only lived 2 hours away, and from the very beginning, they were involved. More than involved, actually. Entwined in everything. His mom, Carol, was the centerpiece. She had a firm grip on family traditions. Sunday dinners every week. Big birthday celebrations with themes, color schemes, and mandatory group photos. There were group chats with separate threads for dinner planning, vacation rentals, and fantasy football, even though only 2 people actually played. I didn't grow up like that. My parents divorced when I was 10. After that, holidays were split and strained. We weren't close-knit, not like Ethan's family. At first, I loved the way they welcomed me in. His mom called me sweetie from the start, and his younger sister, Dana, would loop her arm through mine during family walks. His dad, George, was quiet, but he'd wink at me when Carol got bossy, like we were in on the same joke. I wanted to be part of it. I drove out for Sunday dinners even when Ethan couldn't come. I showed up for Dana's graduation party, for Carol's garden club fundraiser, for George's retirement brunch at the golf course clubhouse. I remembered birthdays, sent cards, helped organize a memory scrapbook for their cousin's wedding shower. When Carol turned 60, I spent 3 weeks planning her surprise party, coordinating caterers, setting up decorations, even designing a custom playlist of her favorite music from each decade. Carol cried that night, told me it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for her. But when people asked who planned it, she smiled and said, "Oh, we all did it together." They always said thank you. Carol would send a text with emojis and too many exclamation points. Dana would post a blurry photo with a caption like, "Best sister-in-law ever." But none of them offered to help. Not with the cooking, not with the setup, not with the cleanup. The first Thanksgiving I hosted, I was 26. Carol said her oven was unreliable, and Dana had just moved apartments, so it made sense for me to do it. I spent 3 days prepping everything: turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, 2 kinds of pie. Ethan helped a little, but mostly, he was just trying to stay out of the way. Everyone came late. George complained about parking. Carol brought a store-bought salad, then loudly reminded everyone that she'd brought something. After dinner, they all moved to the living room to watch football while I cleaned up alone. Still, I told myself it was love. "They're just comfortable with you," I reasoned. They know you've got it under control. They're not trying to take advantage. I believed that for a long time. Because sometimes, they did nice things. Carol knit me a scarf one winter. Dana invited me to her bridal dress fitting. George gave me a cordless drill set when we bought our house. Ethan always said they loved me like one of their own. So I kept giving. Every holiday, I offered to host. I knew the menu by heart. I had labeled bins in the garage for decorations by season. I printed name cards, bought chargers for the plates, folded napkins into little fans like the tutorials online. And every year, I told myself this was how families worked. Someone had to do the labor. Someone had to care enough to hold the whole thing together. That person was me. And for a long time, I didn't mind. Not even when Carol would make comments like, "Your gravy's getting better each year," or when Dana asked if I was still working that little grant job in front of Ethan's new promotion party guests. Not even when I had to chase down RSVPs or figure out dietary needs for George's cousin's girlfriend I'd never met. Because Ethan appreciated it. He always said thank you, kissed my cheek when the guests left, texted me during cleanups when he was working late, telling me the house looked beautiful. But over time, his voice got quieter. When his mom made passive remarks about how I overdid it, he didn't speak up. When I asked for help setting up chairs, he said, "I'm sure they'll pitch in once they get here." They never did. Still, I told myself it was fine. Until it wasn't. And the moment I realized just how invisible I'd become in that family didn't happen in some loud confrontation or shouting match. It happened in silence. Behind a locked door, with the smell of turkey still in the air, and the sound of their laughter echoing through the wall. That was Thanksgiving. But the story started long before that. And if I'm telling it, I'm going to tell the whole thing. Because the moment that changed everything, that came 2 weeks later. And no one saw it coming. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment when I realized things had changed. It was more like a slow unspooling, small comments, small exclusions. And for a while, I told myself I was imagining it. I remember the first time Dana said it. We were standing in the kitchen at her engagement party, just the two of us. She was checking her lipstick in the microwave's reflection while I rinsed out the champagne flutes. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know Mom doesn't really see you as family yet, right? Not until there's a ring." Then she laughed, like it was just a quirky little family rule. I laughed too, even though my stomach dropped. At that point, Ethan and I had been together 5 years. We owned a house. We had a shared bank account. I'd hosted Thanksgiving 3 years in a row, but apparently none of that counted. When I told Ethan about the comment later that night, he frowned and said, "She was probably just trying to be funny." I let it go. That became a pattern. Dana would say something, usually in passing, usually with a smile, that left me feeling like I didn't quite belong. When she was picking bridesmaids, she said she'd love for me to help with the shower, but that the actual wedding party was just sisters and cousins. Carol started leaving me out of certain group chats. When I mentioned I hadn't heard anything about George's birthday dinner, Ethan told me, "Oh, I think Mom thought I'd pass that along." He assumed I'd been included. I hadn't. I started noticing other things too. When they made plans, they used the word family a lot. Family dinner this Sunday. Family trip next spring. Family photos after church. But more and more, I was only included as Ethan's +1, if I was included at all. The worst was the group photo at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. I'd been in the kitchen finishing the gravy when I heard the click of a phone camera and laughter coming from the dining room. When I peeked around the corner, I saw all of them. Ethan, Dana, her husband, Carol, George, even a few second cousins, all posed in front of the fireplace. Carol was waving her phone and saying, "Perfect! That's a great family shot." No one called me in. I was still wearing my apron, hands covered in turkey grease, a sweat ring forming under my collar from hours over the stove. I walked back into the kitchen and just stood there. Ethan came in a few minutes later, saw me looking at the sink full of dishes, and kissed the top of my head like nothing had happened. Later that night, I brought it up while we were getting ready for bed. "I didn't realize they were taking pictures," he said, already pulling off his socks. "I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it." That became his refrain for everything. They didn't mean anything by it. But intentions don't erase patterns. I started testing things. Small things. I'd send a message in the family group chat asking about plans for a holiday, and no one would respond until Ethan asked the same question a day later, and suddenly the replies would flood in. When Carol had a minor surgery, I sent flowers. Dana posted a photo of them on Facebook and tagged everyone in the family except me. I wish I could say I stood up for myself right away, that I drew a line and made things clear, but the truth is, I stayed quiet. I told myself it would get better after we got married. That once I was officially in, things would settle. But we weren't even engaged. Every time I brought it up, Ethan would say it wasn't the right time, or that he wanted to wait until things calmed down at work. I started feeling like I was auditioning for a role I already lived in, hosting holidays, remembering birthdays, showing up, giving, and still not being seen as part of the cast. Then came last Thanksgiving, the one before everything finally broke. We'd been together 6 years by then. I'd hosted the holiday 4 times. But that year, for the first time, Carol said she wanted to do it at her house. Her oven had been replaced, and she said she missed having everyone under her roof. I was honestly relieved. It meant I wouldn't spend 2 days cleaning and cooking and trying to make everything perfect. Carol told me to bring dessert. "You always make the best pie," she said on the phone, and I let myself believe that meant I was wanted there. When we arrived, the house was already full. The smells were familiar: stuffing, roast vegetables, cranberry sauce, but I felt out of place immediately. Dana was directing everyone to their seats with printed place cards. Ethan and I stood near the doorway, awkwardly holding our coats. No one took them. We finally made our way into the dining room, and that's when I saw it. The table was long, 2 folding tables pushed together, covered in a fall-themed cloth, candles down the center. There were 16 chairs. Every single one had a name card. Except there wasn't one for me. There was one for Ethan, one for Dana's husband, one for George's cousin's fiancé, who I'd never met, but nothing for me. "Looks like you're at the kids' table," Dana said, grinning as she passed by with a basket of rolls. I thought she was joking. But then she nodded toward the kitchen, where 2 stools had been pushed up against the breakfast bar. Ethan didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't say anything. He just followed the others to the main table while I stood there holding my pie. I carried it into the kitchen and set it on the counter, then sat on one of the stools, waiting for someone, anyone, to say something. No one did. They passed the turkey around. They poured wine. Someone made a toast. And I sat there, alone, carving a slice of pie I didn't want, pretending I was fine. Ethan eventually came in and sat next to me. He said something about the table being too crowded. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. The next day, I asked him directly, "Do you think your family actually sees me as part of this family?" He looked caught off guard. "Of course they do." "I don't think they do," I said. "And I don't think you do either." He said I was reading too much into it, that his mom had just been stressed, that Dana probably didn't realize how it came off, that it wasn't intentional. But it was intentional. Or if it wasn't, that almost made it worse. They didn't have to think about it. I wasn't part of the mental math when they set the table or wrote the invitations or passed around the camera. And after 6 years, that was all the answer I needed. Thanksgiving morning started the way it always did. I was in the kitchen by 7 a.m., hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, scrolling through the recipe spreadsheet I'd refined over the last few years. Turkey, 2 kinds of stuffing, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, cranberry compote, sweet potato casserole, green beans with almonds, homemade dinner rolls, 3 pies. Carol had called a week before and said her oven was acting up again. It just doesn't heat evenly anymore, she'd explain. And it's probably too cramped with the baby coming. You don't mind hosting, do you? I said yes without thinking. Because that's what I did. She mentioned it like it was a small ask, but it was for 30 people, all of them on her side. Ethan's extended family had grown over the years, and we'd become the de facto gathering spot. He even joked once that our dining room was basically the family cafeteria now. I started the prep 2 days in advance. Grocery lists, baking, carving out fridge space. I asked Ethan to move the extra chairs up from the basement and help fold the linen napkins into those little triangles his mom liked. He said he'd get to it after work. He never did. By Thursday morning, I was running on caffeine and muscle memory. The turkey went in before 8. The house smelled like rosemary and butter. I lit candles in the bathrooms, set out name cards at each place setting, made sure the wine glasses were spotless. I even ironed the tablecloth. Around noon, Ethan said he was heading over to his parents' house. They need help setting up their drinks table, he said, already grabbing his jacket. But they're coming here, I reminded him. Yeah, I know. I guess Carol wants to do some of the pre-dinner stuff over there. I'll be back in an hour. I didn't argue. I didn't have the energy. By 2 p.m., the food was nearly ready. I had everything resting under foil or warming in the oven. The dining room looked perfect. All 30-place settings, gold-rimmed plates, polished flatware, centerpieces with mini pumpkins and eucalyptus stems. At 3:30, I texted Ethan. You almost back? People should start arriving soon. No response. At 4:00, no one had arrived. The turkey was drying out. The green beans had gone limp. I turned the oven off and stood there, staring at the door. At 4:12, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Dinner's here. Thought we told you. That was it. No punctuation, no explanation. I stared at the screen, confused at first. Then I scrolled up through our texts. There was nothing. No mention of plans changing. No heads up. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Then I called Carol. No answer. Dana. Nothing. I just stood there, alone in my kitchen, surrounded by food for 30 people. Still wearing my apron. Still waiting. It took a full minute to realize what had happened, and even then, I couldn't make myself believe it. I grabbed my keys, didn't even bother to change. I got in the car and drove across town, hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to leave marks. I told myself there had to be some misunderstanding. Carol's driveway was full. So was the street. I parked a block away and walked up the sidewalk in my cooking shoes, which were just old sneakers with flour stains on the toes. I could hear laughter before I even got to the front porch. The door was cracked open. I knocked once, then pushed it gently. Carol appeared in the doorway, holding a glass of wine. She looked surprised to see me, but not shocked. Oh, she said, blinking. Amanda. Behind her, I could see the living room. Dana on the couch. George by the fireplace. Ethan sitting at the table, already half a plate in front of him. I stepped forward, still holding my phone. I thought dinner was at our house. She didn't step aside. We changed plans this morning, she said. It just made more sense for everyone to be here. But no one told me. Her eyes moved to my apron, my shoes, my hands. I still had bits of rosemary under my nails. Well, she said with a faint smile, it's family only. Then she closed the door. Not slammed, not shoved, just closed it. Like I was a solicitor, or a neighbor's friend who'd stopped by uninvited. I stood there for a while. I'm not even sure how long. The porch light came on automatically, like it was dusk, even though the sun was still up. I remember stepping back, then forward again, thinking maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone would open the door and laugh and say, gotcha. But no one did. I drove home in silence. The kitchen still smelled like Thanksgiving. The food was cold now. The gravy had separated. I took off my apron and sat down at the head of the table, alone, with 30 empty chairs around me. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there. My phone buzzed again around 5:30. Another text from Ethan. Hope you're okay. We figured it'd be easier this way. That was the moment something inside me stopped. Not broke, just went quiet. I didn't respond. I stood up, packed everything into containers, and cleaned the kitchen. The kind of deep, methodical cleaning that comes from a place beyond anger. I boxed up the turkey, wrapped the pies in foil, wiped down every counter. I even vacuumed. Then I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for the rest of the night. The next morning, Ethan came home like nothing had happened. He brought flowers, grocery store ones, mixed bouquet, still wrapped in cellophane. He kissed my cheek and said, "Sorry about the confusion yesterday. I thought Mom told you." "She didn't," I said. He set the flowers on the counter. "I think she assumed you'd be tired from cooking and didn't want to deal with hosting." "But I already cooked everything." "I know, she didn't mean anything by it." That sentence again. I looked at him and realized I was tired of waiting for him to see it. Tired of defending myself in a room I built. That was the last time I let myself believe that kindness would be reciprocated just because I gave it freely. 2 weeks later, I mailed Carol something, and she opened it during dinner. And this time, she was the one who went quiet. I didn't cry that night. I thought I would, but I didn't. I drove home from Carol's house, pulled into the driveway, and just sat there with my hands on the wheel for a long time. The house was dark. No porch light on. No one waiting. The smell of roasted turkey still hung in my jacket from earlier. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The table was still set for 30. Napkins fanned just so. Centerpieces lit, wine uncorked. Every single dish perfectly timed and untouched. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't take off my shoes. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the first stack of Tupperware I could reach, and started packing it all up. Not angrily. Not with any kind of purpose. Just moving. Turkey. Stuffing. Casseroles. Pie slices. I worked in silence, like I was prepping for a catering gig instead of cleaning up a holiday I wasn't invited to. By the time the counters were cleared and the dishwasher was loaded, it was nearly 10 p.m. I sat down on the couch without bothering to change out of my clothes. My apron was still tied at the waist. My feet hurt. My legs ached from standing all day, but the part of me that was really sore wasn't physical. It was the part that had bent over backward to make sure everything was perfect, for people who didn't even want me in the room. I didn't even know how to label what I was feeling. Anger wasn't quite it. It was colder than that. I sat there in silence until the doorbell rang. It was Beth, my neighbor across the street. She was holding a small plate of cookies and wearing a confused expression. "I thought I saw cars earlier," she said. "You were hosting, right? Is everyone already gone?" I must have looked blank, because she stepped inside before I could answer. "Are you okay?" I nodded, then shook my head. I don't know what expression I was making, but it must have said everything. She sat down across from me without being asked and didn't say anything for a long time. She just waited. Eventually, I told her. Not all at once, just the facts, bit by bit. How Carol had asked me to host. How I'd cooked for 30. How Ethan had left around noon. How no one ever showed. How I got a text, 4 words long, and showed up at her house only to be turned away at the door. Beth didn't react with gasps or shock. She just listened, and then she said very quietly, "You've been their maid, not their family." It hit harder than anything Ethan or his mother had said, because it was true. Every holiday, every favor, every ride to the airport. Every time I watched Dana's dog while they were on vacation, or picked up Carol's prescription, or baked a birthday cake because the bakery was too expensive, I had treated those things like love. But they hadn't. They treated them like convenience, like expectations. And I think that's when it finally clicked. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. It wasn't just that one night. It had been years. I looked around my living room, the clean throw pillows, the curated mantel decor, the fall-scented candles. All of it carefully arranged to make their visit feel warm and welcoming. And all of it for people who didn't see me. Beth stayed for an hour. She didn't offer advice or tell me what to do. She just sat beside me, sometimes quiet, sometimes asking small questions like, "When did this start?" Or, "Have you talked to Ethan yet?" I hadn't. He still hadn't come home. When she finally stood up to leave, she hugged me tight. "You deserve better," she said. "Don't forget that." I nodded, but I didn't believe it yet. The next morning, Ethan walked in around 8 a.m. like it was any other Friday. He was holding a to-go coffee and a paper bag. "Hey," he said, setting them on the counter. "Brought you something." I didn't move from the table. He glanced around the kitchen. "You cleaned up already?" "Yeah." "How'd everything go last night?" I looked up at him. "You really don't know?" He hesitated. "I mean, I thought Mom told you. I assumed she didn't, and you didn't." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I cooked for 30 people," I said, still calm. "I started at 7 a.m. I spent days planning it, and no one showed up. You didn't text until 4, and when I came to the house, your mom told me I wasn't family and closed the door in my face." His expression shifted, but not in the way I'd hoped. It wasn't guilt. It was something closer to discomfort, like I'd just told him about a scheduling mix-up. She probably didn't mean it that way. I let out a quiet laugh. "I don't know what you want me to say," he said finally. "She was stressed. Everyone was. It was just easier to keep it simple." "Simple," I repeated. "You know how things are with my family," he said. "They just don't think the way you do." "I know exactly how they think." That was the end of the conversation. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask if I was okay. He just went upstairs to shower. Later that day, I found myself replaying the moment over and over. The door closing, the plate of untouched food on the counter, Ethan's flat tone, Carol's smile. I didn't cry. I just stopped expecting anything different from them. It's a strange thing, realizing you've spent years trying to earn a spot you were never going to be given. It wasn't just Carol, or Dana, or George. It was Ethan, too. Because he knew, and he let it happen. And that quiet, resigned part of me that had always thought maybe next time, it went quiet for good. The next few days were slow. I kept my routine. Went to work. Cleaned the fridge. Donated most of the leftovers. Ethan acted like nothing had happened. And I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't try to explain why I was upset. I just observed. Every conversation. Every shrug. Every time he referred to Thanksgiving as a bit of a mix-up. And somewhere in all of that, the plan started to form. Not out of revenge, not even anger. Out of clarity. Because if they were going to treat me like staff, then I would give them what staff gives. A bill. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I put Ethan's key in a padded envelope and dropped it in the outgoing mail slot at the post office. No note, no explanation, just the key. He was still at his parents' house that morning. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. I spent that Saturday clearing out space. His closet half was still full of button-downs and polos, most of them barely worn. I folded each one and stacked them in a box labeled Ethan, clothes. The rest went quickly. Chargers, cologne, running shoes. A drawer full of unopened mail he never dealt with. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry anymore. What I felt was finished. He called that night around 7. I let it go to voicemail. He texted 3 times. "Can we talk? Is this about Thursday? I really think you're overreacting." I didn't answer. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there he was, still wearing his family's Thanksgiving sweater, navy with a stitched turkey and his initials on the cuff. "You mailed me my key," he said, holding it up. "Seriously?" I didn't move. "Come on, Amanda, are we really doing this?" I looked at him. "You stood by while they locked me out. Literally. And then you acted like I was being dramatic." It wasn't personal, he said, stepping closer. It wasn't about you. You sat at a table full of food I didn't make, in a house I didn't know I'd been excluded from, while I sat alone, surrounded by everything I had made. How is that not about me? He ran a hand through his hair. Mom just thought, I'm done, I said. He stopped moving. What? I'm done, Ethan. He laughed a little, like I was making a joke. But when I didn't say anything else, the sound died in his throat. You're serious? I nodded. You're really breaking up with me over one holiday dinner? I looked at him for a long time before answering. I'm breaking up with you because you let them erase me, and you called it easier. He stood there like he didn't know whether to get angry or start apologizing. In the end, he did neither. He just said, okay, and walked back to his car. That night, I opened a file on my laptop. I'd never deleted the folders I kept for grocery budgeting. I'd been tracking expenses for years, mostly because Carol had once made a passive remark about how hosting must be a big ask on my salary. I had every receipt, every turkey, every bag of potatoes, every pie crust, every table runner I bought because she wanted a theme, every candle, every name card pack, every single thing I'd ever spent on making their holidays beautiful. I didn't need to organize them. They were already in dated folders, but I went through each one anyway, labeled them, totaled them, printed them. The final stack was just over an inch thick. I added one last page, a printout of Ethan's text from that day. Dinner's here. Thought we told you. I slipped everything into a bright white envelope and took it to the UPS store. Certified mail. Signature required. I didn't include a note. I didn't need to. 3 days later, I got the confirmation email. Signed for by C. Mitchell. She didn't respond, but she got it. I pictured her opening it, sitting at that same dining table with her monogram napkins and seasonal floral arrangement. I pictured her flipping through the receipts. The neatly printed text at the end. Dinner's here. Thought we told you. I didn't want money. I wasn't asking for reimbursement. I just wanted her to see the weight of what I'd carried. And the proof that none of them had lifted a finger. Over the next week, I heard nothing from Ethan. No calls, no texts. His social media went quiet too. I assumed he was still staying at their place, probably licking his wounds. Probably telling himself it was all some miscommunication that I'd taken too far. I didn't reach out. Instead, I started taking things back. I called Dana and told her I wouldn't be doing the catering for her baby shower anymore. She paused, then asked if I'd already made the lemon tartlets she requested. I told her no, then hung up. I deleted the group chat I'd managed for family birthdays, unfollowed everyone but Ethan on Instagram. I took my time clearing the house of all the little things that connected me to them. The extra folding chairs Carol insisted I keep just in case. The casserole dishes she left in my cabinets. The wall calendar with every family event scribbled into it. I started making space for silence. For the first time in years, I didn't have a reason to be planning someone else's dinner or celebration or last-minute emergency. I stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. Beth came by a few days later with coffee. Do they know? She asked, handing me a cup. They know. Any response? No. She nodded. Maybe that's better. I don't need an apology, I said. No, you need distance. We sat in the kitchen sipping coffee in the same room I'd once spent hours trying to make beautiful for people who never even noticed. I sent them the receipts, I said finally. Beth raised an eyebrow. Just the receipts, I added, and Ethan's text. Beth's mouth twitched, like she was trying not to smile. You really mailed it? Certified. Signature required. That's when she laughed. Not meanly, just surprised. Well, she said, that's the most elegant middle finger I've ever heard of. I didn't disagree. Because the truth is, I didn't need them to suffer. I didn't need them to grovel. I just needed them to know that I saw it all. And that I was done pretending I didn't. Word got around faster than I expected. I never posted anything, never made a scene, never sent out any kind of statement. But within a week, people started reaching out, individually, quietly. The first was Lila, Ethan's cousin's wife. She sent me a message on Instagram. "Hey, I just heard what happened on Thanksgiving. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. If I had, I wouldn't have stayed." That was it. No emojis. No small talk. Just one woman to another, acknowledging that something ugly had happened and that she'd been adjacent to it. Lila was someone I used to see a few times a year at best. We bonded once over dry turkey and wine spritzers at a 4th of July barbecue. I'd shown her how to roast a chicken properly that same weekend, walked her through the basics of brining and buttering. She texted me a photo 2 weeks later of the one she made at home. I hadn't thought much about her since, but her message meant something. It was the first confirmation that what happened hadn't been invisible, that someone else had noticed. A few days later, another one came. This time, from Marcy, one of Dana's college friends. I barely knew her, but she followed me on Instagram and had once ordered cupcakes from me for a bridal shower. "Your Thanksgiving setup looked beautiful. I'm shocked they didn't show. Are you okay?" That's when I realized Ethan's family must have posted something. I checked Carol's page, private of course, but Dana's wasn't. And there it was, a photo of their Thanksgiving table, all 20-something of them crammed around Carol's dining room. The caption read, "Family is everything s***. I looked at the image for a long time. There were people in that photo who'd sat at my table, people who'd eaten food I'd stayed up all night preparing, people who had asked me to help them with their wedding menus, their baby showers, their anniversaries. None of them said a word. Ethan didn't say anything either. He stayed silent. No apology, no explanation, no last-ditch effort to make things right. A friend of mine who still worked with one of Ethan's coworkers told me he'd moved back in with his parents. That didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me was how quickly things started to unravel over there. Carol tried to host Christmas that year. She wanted to keep things simple, according to Dana. That meant she made her famous stuffing, the one she always claimed had been passed down from her great aunt. In reality, it was a box mix with some chopped celery thrown in. She forgot to thaw the turkey until the morning of. George tried to fry it outside and nearly started a fire. Dana made a pumpkin pie from a pre-made crust and left the foil on the edges the entire time it baked. Someone, probably one of the younger cousins, posted a video of the chaos to their story. I saw it through a mutual friend. Carol's voice in the background, yelling for someone to stir the gravy. A shot of the turkey, still pink in the middle, a burnt casserole dish on the counter. I didn't laugh. I didn't feel triumphant. But I felt clear. They'd always expected things to run smoothly without ever asking who was making it happen. They assumed ease just showed up, that dinner appeared on a table because someone liked doing that stuff. But I'd been the one doing it. All of it. And now, without me, the cracks were showing. I started getting more messages after New Year's. People asking if I was still baking, if I was available for small events. Nothing big, just a brunch, or a retirement dinner, or a friend's engagement party. At first, I said no. I needed space. I didn't want to get sucked back into being everyone's go-to person just because they knew I'd say yes. But then I thought about what I wanted. Not for them. For me. So I said yes, but on my terms. No discounts. No rush deadlines. No favors. I created a separate email account, bought a cheap domain, put up a single landing page with my name, a contact form, and a list of available services. Nothing fancy. And people came, slowly at first, then more steadily, word of mouth mostly. Referrals from people who remembered the holiday spreads, the custom cookies, the balanced menus. I kept it quiet. I didn't post photos. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't turn it into a brand. I just worked. I catered a baby shower for a coworker's sister, a backyard anniversary party, A small reception for a woman remarrying after 10 years on her own. Each one gave me something back. Not just money, though, that helped, but a feeling I hadn't had in a long time. Control. These were my clients, my contracts, my decisions. No one asked me to do it just because I was good at it. No one handed me a last-minute list or assumed I'd take care of it. They paid deposits, followed timelines, respected the work. Meanwhile, Ethan's world kept getting smaller. I heard he quit his job a month after the breakup, said he needed a reset. Carol told someone he was helping around the house in the meantime. Dana complained on Twitter about how everyone expects the women to carry the emotional labor. That part almost made me laugh. I didn't miss them. What I missed was the illusion I'd built for myself, that being indispensable meant being valued, that if I just gave more, did more, tried harder, they'd finally see me as one of them. But I wasn't one of them. I never had been. And now, finally, I wasn't pretending. I started saying no more often. No, I can't do that last-minute menu. No, I won't deliver outside this zone. No, I'm not available that weekend. People still tried. One woman who knew Carol reached out asking if I'd cater her niece's graduation. "Carol says you're amazing," she wrote. I didn't respond. A week later, I got a voicemail from Dana. "Hey, just wondering if you'd be open to talking. I know things ended kind of weird, but I think there's stuff we should say, or at least clear up." I deleted it, because the only thing I needed to clear up had already been said, through silence, through absence, through boundaries. They finally had no choice but to notice. I didn't scream, I didn't threaten, I didn't demand closure. I just stopped showing up. And for people like them, that was louder than anything I could have said. Ethan emailed me in early April. I saw it while scrolling through my phone during a break between prepping dishes for a spring brunch order. The subject line was short, "I'm sorry." I almost deleted it without opening it, but I didn't. The message wasn't long, maybe 5 paragraphs. There were no excuses, no retelling of events from his side, just a quiet, steady acknowledgement of what he hadn't done. He said he was sorry, not just for Thanksgiving, but for everything that led up to it, for watching it happen, for letting it happen, for pretending it wasn't happening at all. He wrote, "I should have stood up for you. I should have said something when my mom left you out of the photo, when Dana made those comments, when I let them treat you like help instead of family." I read it twice. Then I closed the tab. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. Not even because I didn't believe him. I actually did. I think, for the first time, he was seeing it clearly. But clarity doesn't entitle anyone to return access. There's a difference between regret and repair. And even repair doesn't always mean reconciliation. A month later, Dana sent a message too. It came through on Facebook, which I hadn't touched in weeks. The preview just read, "I've been thinking about you a lot." I opened it out of curiosity, half expecting some veiled insult dressed up as an olive branch. But it wasn't that. It was surprisingly honest. She said she'd been talking to a therapist. That Thanksgiving had opened a lot of conversations in her own home about the way the women in her family were raised to expect certain things and how easy it was to fall into patterns without ever questioning who those patterns hurt. She said she remembered how I always took the brunt of the planning, how I handled the chaos while everyone else took credit or walked away. She said she saw it now. And she ended with this: "I know I didn't make space for you. And I'm sorry. You deserved better than what we gave you." I stared at that line for a long time. I didn't reply right away. I let it sit. When I finally answered, I kept it simple. "Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate the message. I'm not looking to reconnect, but I do wish you well." She hearted it. That was it. I told Beth about it over coffee the following weekend. She just nodded. "They're allowed to grow," she said, "but you don't have to babysit the process." That stuck with me, because part of me used to think that healing meant everything had to go back to normal, that if someone was sorry and admitted they were wrong, It meant I had to meet them halfway again. But I don't think that's true anymore. Some bridges are meant to stay burned, not out of bitterness, but because rebuilding them would only lead you back to a place you already outgrew. I don't hate Ethan. I don't think Carol is some villain. I'm not even angry at Dana anymore. They're just people. Flawed, messy, short-sighted people who lived inside a system that worked for them and never thought to question who kept it running. I was the system. I kept things moving, smiling, organized, polished. And when I stopped, they had to figure out how to function without it. Maybe that's what finally forced the reflection. But by the time they looked up, I was already gone. Now, when people ask if I'm still close with Ethan's family, I just say no. I don't explain. I don't share the story unless it really matters. I've learned that peace isn't about making sure everyone understands your side. It's about knowing you don't have to explain it anymore. I still cater, but I keep it small. Intimate gatherings, personal touches, clients who pay deposits and ask respectful questions. The kind of people who notice the effort and don't just assume it's your job to make everything beautiful for them. Sometimes I'll catch myself folding napkins just so, or double-checking the layout of a table like I used to for Carol's dinners. But now it's mine. My rules. My voice. A few of the mutuals I used to share with Ethan have stopped reaching out. I think they're not sure whose side to take. I never asked them to pick. But silence speaks, and I've learned to listen. One of Ethan's aunts sent me a birthday card in June. Just a little note. Thinking of you. Miss your lemon bars. Hope you're doing well. I didn't write back, but I kept the card. Not out of sentiment. Just as a reminder. People will miss what you gave, not always who you were. And that's fine. I don't need to be remembered. I just needed to stop disappearing in real time. Now, my world is quieter. Smaller in some ways, but much more solid. I host dinners with close friends who show up early to help set the table and stay late to do dishes. I spend weekends testing recipes no one asked for, just because they make me happy. And on Thanksgiving this year, I'll be catering a Friendsgiving for a small nonprofit. 10 people, 1 table, everyone bringing something to share. No one will be shut out. And no one will leave hungry. It's been 2 years. Sometimes it feels longer, like another life, one that belonged to someone else, someone who used to stay up past midnight folding napkins for people who never once noticed. I live in a different part of town now. Smaller place, better light. No extra storage space for folding chairs or stacks of seasonal platters. Just what I need. Nothing more. The catering business grew slowly and then all at once. I kept it quiet. No ads. No flashy social media, just a name, a number, and good word of mouth. People started calling it the dinner list, a kind of whispered invitation-only event. That wasn't my plan, but I didn't fight the reputation. I host 4 dinners a season, sometimes 5. Intimate, curated, never more than 16 guests. I cook everything myself with one assistant on the day of to help plate and pour. No themed centerpieces, no dress codes, just warm lighting, real food, and good people. I call it Still Table. The name came to me one night, while watching guests linger at the end of a spring event. Everyone else had left. The candles were half burned. One of the guests, a retired teacher, sat there holding a glass of wine, smiling to herself. No one said anything. We were just still. That's what I'd been missing all those years. Not the food, not the praise, the stillness, the belonging that didn't have to be earned. Last Thanksgiving, I decided to host a special version of Still Table. Just one night, one table. A thank you to the clients who had helped build the business. People who paid on time. People who were kind. People who treated food service like the artistry it is, not a personal favor to be repaid in exposure. I printed formal invitations, thick cardstock, gold foil trim, the whole thing. 12 guests, carefully chosen. I sent them out a month early. One of the recipients, a longtime client named Julianne, accidentally forwarded the invite to her holiday list. She didn't realize my email wasn't BCC'd. I didn't think anything of it. I was fully booked anyway. A few days later, I got an RSVP from a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Carol Mitchell. No note. Just the standard form filled in, name typed carefully in the field. Would be honored to attend. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about ignoring it. Then thought about replying. In the end, I just clicked decline. No explanation. I didn't need to say anything. The message was clear. That night, I hosted 12 guests in a small garden courtyard behind a converted studio space downtown. Long wood table, no linens, just candles and fresh herbs in ceramic jars. The air was cool, but no one seemed to mind. We passed dishes by hand. Braised short ribs, roasted carrots with honey and thyme, garlic mashed potatoes, apple tarts. There was music, but not loud. Laughter, but never forced. No one asked me what time dinner would be ready. No one treated me like staff. I sat with them, between a florist and a school counselor. We talked about books, about trips people wanted to take. Someone cried, softly, telling a story about their late grandmother and the way she used to make cornbread. We passed the basket down the table and someone said, "She'd be proud." And for the first time, I sat through an entire Thanksgiving meal without bracing myself, without watching the door, without calculating who needed what. I just ate. I thought about Ethan once that night, briefly, wondered where he was, whether he'd gone back to his family's table or found a new one, whether Carol had made her stuffing from scratch this time, or if they'd ordered catering and pretended they cooked it themselves. I didn't dwell. I didn't need to. Because I wasn't part of that story anymore. A few weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. Postmarked from Ethan's parents' neighborhood. I recognized the script. Carol's. It was short, just 4 lines. I saw the menu on Instagram, looked beautiful. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I didn't understand what you gave us. I hope you're well." I folded it once and put it in a drawer. I haven't looked at it since. Forgiveness is a strange thing. Everyone thinks it's something you give out loud, like a gift. But I think real forgiveness is private, quiet. It's what happens when you stop needing the apology to fix anything. I don't need Carol to feel bad. I don't need Ethan to regret losing me. I don't need Dana to keep sending yearly updates about how her kids still ask about Auntie Amanda even though they never did. What I needed was to reclaim my own name, my own time, my own table. I have that now. Still, table keeps growing, though I'm careful about how much I take on. I don't want it to become something I resent. I still keep Sundays for myself. I cook for no one. I read. I walk. I reset. Sometimes I get messages from newer chefs asking how I built a brand without a brand. I always answer honestly. I stopped doing things for people who treated the work like an obligation. I made something for myself, and then I protected it. A few of my early clients have tried to push for more events, more guests, more exposure. I tell them no, politely. Still, table isn't for that. It never will be. It's not about the food. It's about the feeling. That moment when the room quiets and people are full, not just from eating, but from being seen. That's the legacy I care about. I don't know where the Mitchells are now. I don't keep tabs. But every so often, someone mentions a new family tradition they're trying to start, how Carol's cranberry sauce is different now, how Dana's hosting more often but always seems a little stressed. I nod. I smile. And I don't offer to help. Because I'm not their help anymore. I'm the one with the full table, the quiet kitchen, the kind clients. And when I think back to that Thanksgiving, the one with the empty chairs and the unopened wine, I don't feel shame anymore. I feel gratitude. They showed me exactly who they were. And in the absence they left behind, I built something far better than belonging. I built peace. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever been excluded by people you thought were family, or had to rebuild after someone took you for granted, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever walked away quietly? And did they notice when you stopped showing up? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this hit close to home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your story matters too.